Welcome back to the Ragnarwald, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have our champion spotlight for the lavishly lethal Lorekeeper. The Lorekeeper features a myriad of fun card interactions, so many in fact that it would be impossible to cover them all in just this one video. But we can cover the basics on how to play them, as well as a few tips and tricks along the way. Let's get started. Once again, we are playing on the free Tabletop Simulator mod, which is currently the easiest way to access the game. If you'd like to follow along, you can find a link to that mod in the description below this video. Before we get started with our setup, we need to address the Lorekeeper's portrait card and its awaken effect, as it affects our setup phase. As you can see, we awaken once from each of the following encounters: defeating another champion, killing a creature, completing a dungeon, and resolving an event encounter. When we awaken, we look at the top 5 cards of the spell deck and choose one to learn, shuffling the remainder back into the spell deck. Our passive champion effect at the bottom of the card deals with Affinity, a concept we'll touch a little bit later on. At the start of the game, we gain control of our Lorekeeper spell deck and our trusty Book of Deliberation ability. Separate the 4 Epoch spells, Living Inferno, Glacial Tomb, Blood Surge, and Convoke Courage. Shuffle the deck, and then awaken 4 times. Then, choose one of the Epoch spells to learn, adding the other 3 back into the spell deck. Equip a dagger card, set aside your Nether Pact, then choose 3 of your 5 event cards that will be added to the communal event deck. Before proceeding any further, let's take a closer look at our Book of Deliberation. On the cleanup phase, we restore 2 mana. If we die, we restore 3 mana. Unlike HP, mana is not automatically restored to its maximum value whenever we die. Now the second part of our book is where things get really interesting. Whenever we awaken, including at the beginning of the game as part of the setup, instead of choosing the spell to learn, we remove all 5 spell cards that we see from the game. If we do, we create a mana mox, which increases our maximum mana by 5. We show this via this purple colorful D4. As you can see, we can only control a maximum of 4 mana moxes. Mana mox I? 4 mana mox. Let's quickly go over the different types of spell card. Each spell has one of 5 types associated with it, depicted on the center left side of the card. The 5 types are Fire, Frost, Life, Death, or Arcane. The more of these spells that you control, the stronger your power with that type of spell becomes. This concept is known as Affinity. Each spell of a certain type that you control increases your affinity of that type. Each spell you control with the opposite affinity subtracts that value. The opposite affinities are Fire and Frost, and Life and Death. An affinity value cannot drop below 0. For example, if we control 4 Fire spells and 1 Frost spell, we would have a Fire affinity of 3 and a Frost affinity of 0. Arcane affinity has a unique property to it. Once you control 3 different arcane spells, you may add all other affinity values to your arcane affinity. For example, if we control 3 arcane spells, 3 fire spells, and 4 death spells, we would have a total arcane affinity of 10. Lastly, some spells have this little finger snap icon on the right side of the card, denoting it as a snap spell. Normally, you may only cast 1 spell per approach. However, snap spells get around this rule and can be cast once per copy of that snap spell that you control. These spells do not count against your 1 spell per approach limit. Now that we know what Affinity is, let's take another look at our champion portrait card. We can see that once we control 9 or more affinity, we may flip this card. Once we flip, we can see that our awaken effect changes. We no longer learn new spells, but rather improve the effectiveness with our existing spellbook by increasing our magic power directly. Notice that our awaken triggers also change, and that we no longer awaken from creature or event encounters.
Remember, choose wisely when you commit to flipping your portrait card.
I hope you all enjoyed our little jaunt into the realm of the magical Lorekeeper. Be sure to check out our channel if you missed our other How to Play videos, and subscribe for more content if you'd like to see other highlighted champions in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.